Hello again, I'm Tripp Rogers, and this is Tripp's Take. Got a couple of things to talk about, a lot of sports-related stuff. First of all, over the weekend, made my first visit to Tropicana Field in Tampa, or St. Pete, if you prefer the proper way to say it. Went there to see the Yankees and the Rays play. It was the first time I have visited an indoor stadium, or a stadium with a roof, I guess is a good way to put it. And I have to say, the experience was not a pleasant one. Couple of issues. First of all, traffic in Central Florida is god-awful. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. It was 2 hours and 20 minutes to get to Tropicana Field, and we left from Kissimmee, Florida, which is southwest of Orlando. I-4 was ridiculous. Trying to get over to St. Pete, ridiculous. Getting into the stadium, it is a 45,000 seat stadium, but they close off the upper deck, 25,000 seat capacity. And the team has one of the worst attendance records in baseball, third from the bottom. And it's a winning team. Well, one of the problems I had, first of all, the ticket prices are off the charts. $82 a piece for my fiance and I to go to a game. Now, my fiance is not a huge baseball fan. So why would we pay that much money? Now, of course, we got a package deal, so that's part of it either. But then let's talk food costs. Spent $70. 2 ice creams, a foot-long hot dog, regular hot dog, fries, and a bottomless soda, a souvenir cup. I think the thing that really blew my mind was the next day I went into a 7-Eleven locally, found the 25-ounce can of beer for $2.99. At the game, $18. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I understand there are a lot of other factors involved here, but it's still, for a family to go to a game, you're going to have a second mortgage on the house. And they are pricing out the fans that, baseball has the most home games of any sport. 81. It's unbelievable. Just unreal. And the other part of the problem is it's an enclosed stadium. So the noise is contained. So when they're playing all this music and all this thing to hype the crowd up, it's loud. And it's just, I just shake my head. I really shake my head. I don't understand how Tampa Bay has a team. And by the way, they have a winning record. That's the other part of it. I mean, impressive. They've been in the playoffs 5 years in a row. I can't say that about the Yankees. But still, really. I mean, I just really did not enjoy it. Now, I will put it on par with going to the Jags-Giants game a couple of years ago. I mean, the Jaguars don't draw that many fans, so they're sitting there and they're cranking out the music and they're pumping the crowd up every chance they get. I'm like, I'm not used to this. I'm used to going to a game and enjoying it, and the crowd is into it. That's the problem, I think. And it stems back to the NBA, too, because they do that at the NBA games, and it's just ridiculous. Although, if you watch a game in New York right now in the playoffs, the New York crowd will pump you up. That's what I'm used to. That's what I'm used to. So I don't know if I'll go to Tampa Bay again to see a game. Just awful. But that's my opinion. And they also asked me a survey, and I told them that. That's just the way I feel. The baseball game itself, I will say, I do enjoy. I've gone to 2 games now the last 2 years, and the speed of the game is picked up with the pitch clock. I really like that. The games were over 2.5 hours. That's not bad, considering the fact that it was longer to get to the game than the game actually took place. It was longer to get home than the game took place. But still, I enjoyed it. That part I enjoyed. And the speed of the baseball game I do. But I don't know. Maybe I'm too old school. And maybe that's part of the problem. I remember baseball when there wasn't all this, hype around it and stuff and the batter's music and, just walk up, hit the ball. Come on. Bob Shepard announces it. Yeah, moving on. That's my opinion. All right, speaking of sports, the NFL schedule release on Wednesday, and oh boy, a lot of bon mots on this one. First of all, Christmas games. You can't spell NFL without Netflix. They will have the Christmas games at least for the next 3 years. They'll have 2 this Christmas. And again, the gift that keeps on giving, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson will both be featured on Christmas Day on Netflix. The NFL schedule is always a fun day because you can look and see who you're playing. And the Giants play the Vikings, which means we'll have a Rogers Bowl right off the bat. And we will continue the annual fall tradition of it's Sunday night and your team sucks. It'll be an easy phone call because we're playing each other. So there's a winner, there's a loser. The Giants on Thanksgiving Day, not basically in love with that one. Giants go to Germany to play the Carolina Panthers. Okay, it doesn't matter to me. I think the NFL, if you'll notice, the last 2 weeks of the season, they basically are not scheduling when games are going to be played. They'll schedule where they are, but they're not scheduling when because they want to get the most entertaining matchups. So it is kind of interesting. And I've thought about this week. I think the 18-game season is coming because I think players will trade off the last preseason game for a regular season game, especially if they go 2 weeks in the schedule, 2 bye weeks. And again, that would move the Super Bowl to President's Weekend, which I think would be a good move because then there'd be a built-in day off for everybody to party and the game could be played on Sunday. Of course, the NBA not going to like it because that's the All-Star weekend for them. And NASCAR's not going to like it because that's the Daytona 500. But again, there will be some concessions made. I think Fox is going to have a problem with it because they couldn't do 5 hours of Super Bowl programming if they're going to have the Daytona 500 opposite that one. But again, we shall see what happens as time goes on. Another thing I want to talk about this weekend, it's the Preakness Stakes. And Mystic Dan is going to make an appearance at the Preakness Stakes. So we can see if maybe could go for the Kentucky Derby. I mean, horse racing is always great. The Kentucky Derby is wonderful to watch, and we had a great one this year. The Preakness Stakes also will be fun to watch this weekend. Speaking of sports, got the PGA Championship. It'll be at Valhalla. It's a classic site. And the question is going to be, can Tiger pull himself out of his funk? Can Tiger be a factor, I guess would be a good way to put it. The other question, Corey McIlroy. There are a lot of questions about him right now. He's getting divorced, and having gone through a divorce, even if it's something you wanted, it's still really tough to go through. And there's a reason why it's not easy. And I will be curious to see what his mental state is this weekend and how he plays. It is the second major championship for golf. And of course, next month will be the U.S. Open, and then the Open comes in July. I mean, golf, you can't beat it. And, if that was not enough, let's take a look at auto racing. You got the Indy 500. The time trials are this weekend. Kyle Larson trying to do the double, do the Indy 500 and the Coke 600 on the same day. It will be very interesting to see if he can pull this off. He's been very competitive in practice so far, but we shall wait and see. This weekend also is the NASCAR All-Star race, and Kevin Harvick is going to have to drive for him in order to get practice in for the car, and then he'll come and he'll drive it on Saturday night. One other thing that may have kind of slipped by, NASCAR has announced they're going to do an in-season tournament. This is something that's going to coincide with next year's broadcast schedule. Fox will get the first 10 races, and then TNT and Amazon will take 5 races in the middle. So the TNT portion will have this in-season tournament, and it's basically going to be 32 drivers going head-to-head. And you finish better than the other one, you move on in the tournament. It sounds very simple, right? And the qualifying for this will be the final 3 races before that 5-race series. I mean, in-season tournament sounds good. It's a race within a race. Okay, that's all right. Pays $1 million. That's not bad. I could use the money. It's a way to get some interest in the middle part of the NASCAR season, which a lot of people, kind of drop away and not pay attention for. And that's one of the reasons why NASCAR has gone to a playoff. And again, there's nothing wrong with generating some interest in races that you may not have interest in. But it'll be interesting to see what does happen, because the face and the presentation of NASCAR is going to change next year, because Fox will only have the first 10 races, and then they will give it up to TNT and Amazon. Dale Jr. will be their commentator, the first one that they've announced, and they'll cover it for 10 races, and then NBC will take over the latter half of the schedule, and that will, of course, include the chase for the championships. Interesting to see. And, of course, we talk about racing. The Indy 500 is coming up this month. It is an event on my bucket list I really want to go to. I have wanted to attend the Indy 500 for years and years, even if it's a case of I go to the track just to go to the Indy 500 museum, because that was the race that got me interested in auto racing. AJ Foyt is the man. I had a chance to meet him in the mid-'80s when they were racing at the Meadowlands, and it was just a thrill. He is a class act, and he's still cantankerous as ever, and I really would love to see AJ's team win, but, it's tough. AJ is a tough go. He really does. But still, Indy 500, I will watch, because it is tradition. And there is nothing more traditional on Memorial Day than the Indy 500. And, of course, let's throw in the fact you've got the Coke 600 later in the day. Oh, and let's not forget Formula One. Monaco is coming up, too. So that's another great race. And that is Tripp's Take for May the 16th. Oh boy, we're just moving along. We're coming up on the ending our third year, heading into our fourth year of Tripp's Take. I can't believe it. We've churned out one every week, and I thank you for joining me for it. Got comments or questions? Let me know. trippstake@gmail.com. Fantasy football players with the football schedule release. That means a lot of folks are starting to think about fantasy football. We are going to have a new off-season Hard Knocks with the New York Giants. Well, fantasy football players, before we know it, the Hall of Famer Mike Sheck and yours truly will be back to talk fantasy football and get you ready for the 24 season. You can find that podcast on Spotify for podcasters and YouTube. Just search for Fantasy Sultans. If you like the music of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and who doesn't? Oh, yeah. It's WTRSradio.com. You can find that on Live365.com, too. Join us again next week for another edition of Tripp's Take. For now, I am Tripp Rogers. I thank you so much for joining me. Make it a great one.